I sacrificed one of my longest played characters, inadvertently causing another PC's death. So this is gonna be a bit of a one, but I figured typing it all out would help me sort of go through all that happened, because man, it was kind of a crazy hour or so. Also, I really want to commit Copac to memory, because I really got attached to this old coot. So for setup, myself and my friends are running a full Tyranny of Dragons campaign, starting with Horde at level 1, because we had a couple of players that didn't have too much experience. The rest of us have played a solid bit, between D&D and other games, both official and homebrew. For the most part, due to bad luck, we were never able to keep those going for any length of time. We've been successful so far on this one, going on about 8 months of consistent sessions. It's a good mix of combat and RP, run pretty close to RAW, with a little bit of homebrew and rule of cool as appropriate. I've been running a 500-ish year old Tortle Grave cleric, my first cleric actually to help support the newer players. An adventurer several hundred years ago, who is headed out on one last adventure. His village is regarded as caretakers of the dead, and is dedicated to the passage between life and death, rather than any particular deity. As such, his shell is covered with the symbols of various gods of death, so he is able to administer the correct rites for any death he oversees. He has realized that his advanced age is due to the divine magic in him, keeping him alive for one last purpose. So he set out with a shield carved to look like a headstone, so he could be buried whenever he fell. The other characters are a Furbolg wildfire druid, trying to find her purpose, who's both sweet and hilariously awkward, an Aasimar Echo Knight, a man of few words, and blunt ones at that, going through an identity crisis with his inner self, with some kind of ancestral inner spirit that the rest of us have dubbed a mind werewolf, and a Goliath Rune Knight, who joined the group a little later in with some kind of connection to the cult, and a pretty funny rivalry developing with the Aasimar. The final two, which are the important ones for this part of the story, are a changeling soul knife rogue and a human divination wizard. The rogue was a young and gullible member of the cult, but wizened up and escaped, but all of his friends were killed. He's out for revenge, but gets a little bit of tunnel vision when encountering higher-ups in the cult, especially Rezimir. This, combined with some impulse decisions and very bad rolls, have landed him in some rough spots, and he's died once already. My cleric has already talked to him about not rushing to his death. His friends will be waiting on the other side no matter when he gets there. The divination wizard's family was killed by the cult when he was younger, so he has studied to be able to predict the future and prevent anyone else he cares about from dying, mainly just his adopted sister. He's also become a little paranoid and slow to trust. The only exceptions so far seem to be the druid, who he considers a little sister, and is both trusting of and protective over, and my cleric. This started with him not believing I was that old, and had lived through all these things that he, as a giant history nerd, had read about. This turned into a grudging friendship, with an ongoing singular game of dragon chess, my wisdom and experience versus his raw intelligence. Rogue and Wizard's relationship is complicated. Actually, never mind, it's pretty simple. Wizard absolutely does not trust Rogue. He refuses to believe that someone can escape the cult for reasons that are wrapped up in his past. Unfortunately, a lot of the things Rogue does unintentionally look shady, and any time there's a charm effect, it seems to hit Rogue and cause him to attack the party, furthering Wizard's distrust and paranoia about Rogue, to the point where it can get antagonistic. Now, it should be noted that most of us have been friends for a good many years, in particular myself, DM, Echo Knight, Wizard, and Rogue. Rogue and Wizard especially have been best friends basically their whole lives, and so are fine having PC confrontations and antagonism without real-world hurt feelings. Also, the two of them created characters that were connected to the cult, to help push the story along if needed, again to help the newer players. Now, after that overly long setup, the moment happened right near the end of the Horde of the Dragon Queen. We had landed on the flying castle, killed Rezimir, with Rogue actually getting the killing blow. Shortly after, in peak D&D fashion, Rogue bungled a roll and basically got curb stomped by a group of cultists that he was trying to kill while they were asleep. I used our last diamond to revive him. This led to a small bonding moment between him and Wizard, with Wizard noticing that Rogue was crying upon being revived, as he was so close to seeing his friends again before he was brought back. After a rest, we were woken up by the rumbling of the castle, now on a collision course with the mountains. We decided to split, with Druid turning into a giant eagle and carrying the two fighters off, and Wizard and Rogue trying to find a way to stop the castle, so we could find information about how to proceed. I followed to keep an eye on the two of them. Wizard cast haste on Rogue so he could dash off. Two of us stayed behind and searched another area. Rogue found a dead giant and told Wizard through the psychic link he had set up. Through some information we obtained earlier, we assumed that the giant had been controlling the castle, and Wizard asked if I had anything that could help the situation. I said yes, and he moved haste over to me so I could get there, telling me we have to stop the castle from crashing. Now, because we had no diamonds left, they figured I probably had Speak with Dead prepared to try and get anything useful from the giant. I unfortunately did not have that, but I did have life transference. A little while back, I talked with the DM and ran him by the idea of using life transference as a last-ditch revival method at the cost of my life. With my character's backstory and the sacrifice required, the DM agreed to it. The plan was to save it for a party member, but right then to my cleric, the only way forward was to bring back the giant and see if he could gain control back. Otherwise, we would have no leads about how to proceed. This is where the tragic circumstances start. As I sped off, Wizard told Rogue that I was on my way and to wait for me. Rogue decided to look around the area while waiting, and ended up going down a different path and discovering part of the horde. Meanwhile, Wizard kept looking where he was, and found an office with information that would presumably show us where to go next. I was not in the psychic link, so he was not able to tell me. As he was looking through it, I arrived at the dead giant. Rogue was nowhere to be seen, as he was looking through the horde to try and find diamonds or anything useful for us at the moment. The DM left his findings up to a roll, in which he unfortunately did not find any diamonds. I texted the DM. He said it was okay, so I set up for my farewell. I used sending to tell the wizard I was going to bring back the giant. He might want to get here to help out, to take care of himself, and I'd see him around. He didn't respond back out of sheer shock and denial over what he thought was happening, and took off while asking Rogue where he was. Rogue told him he was nearby searching, and Wizard told him to go get the old man, or I swear I'll burn your face off. Rogue stuffed what he was looking through into his pockets and took off as well. So I have to myself at least, a cool sacrificial moment. All the symbols on my shell light up, and each pulse of energy that is transferred from me to the giant causes one to flare brightly then fade away, until they're all gone. I fall down, and am starting to fade as Wizard and Rogue both arrive. With a weak and unsteady hand, I pull a small figure carved from stone out of a pouch. The wizard reaches out and gently takes it from me. Wizard realizes what I've given him. My king from the dragon chest set. You win. For now, I said softly. I look at Rogue and remind him not to rush towards death, that they all have long lives ahead of them, and to finish this. Thus, with his purpose seemingly fulfilled, my cleric moves on with a smile on his face. The giant revives, and Wizard yells at him with tongues that the castle is crashing, to go fix it. This surprisingly works, and as the giant runs off, Wizard turns on Rogue. He asks where were you, and as Rogue tries to explain, Wizard asks him to empty his pockets. Rogue does, and Wizard sees the loot fall out, assuming Rogue was just off looting while I died. This is the last straw for Wizard, and he begins using Tasha's mind whip on Rogue, using silvery barbs whenever Rogue passes a save. Rogue just stands there making no attempts to defend himself, presumably due to blaming himself for what happened, or realizing he was about to reunite with his friends. As Rogue falls unconscious, Wizard says, I made a promise, and uses firebolts to eat up Rogue's death saves. Then with 2 dead PCs on the ground, Wizard escaped the castle through a window. That is where the session ended. A note here. Wizard and Rogue were texting the whole time through this, and Rogue was perfectly fine with this happening. Wizard would not have gone this route if he wasn't. Now, originally, we were all 3 going to play new characters, as Wizard was going to say screw it, head home to his sister and run off, but he decided he still wanted to stay with the group, and it's going to meet up with the others, and more interestingly, tell them exactly what happened. Wizard believes he did nothing wrong, so the reactions from other characters should be fun. Rogue is currently setting up a Chronergy Wizard, while I'm bringing in a Yuan Ti Trickster Cleric in the service of Asmodeus, so my first ever evil character. Now, I just want to throw it out there. We know everything wasn't done exactly by the book, and there are also other things we could have done to prevent the outcome from being as tragic as it was. But we all played exactly how we thought the characters would act, and none of us would change anything. Was it a worthy sacrifice? To the players, absolutely. Doing what your character would do in situations like this is what D&D is all about. Tell us about your heartbreaking sacrifices in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things